Hi there, this is Bonrek the Orc, and today I thought I'd make a video on when to use for example and when to use for instance. And this is basically something that cropped up in a conversation that I was having with a couple of friends, and these two terms are often used interchangeably, more so now with the internet, where many misconceptions are accepted as facts based on popularity rather than actual truth. But knowing when to use for example and when to use for instance is often confused, but it is quite simple to know when to use which one. And how I learned the difference was when I was younger and still at school. I was asked by a Belgian girl what the difference between for example and for instance was, and at the time I didn't know what the difference was. So the next day I asked my teacher, and he explained the difference to me, and he explained that the difference between an example and an instance is that an example is hypothetical and an instance is actual fact. And he went on to explain getting a low mark in an exam would result in an F grade, but a high mark would get an A grade. For example, which is hypothetical, if a pupil got only 5% in an exam, they could expect an F grade. Whereas you, for instance, actual fact, who scored 95% will get an A grade. So simply, if you're using an actual fact, then you would use for instance. But if you're using a scenario that is hypothetical, then you would use for example. However, it is important to consider the scope within which you are using it. Let's take a scenario where a primary school teacher is giving a quick test to their pupils of 4 maths questions, and they've got to show the answers using repeated addition. And they give the example 3 times 4 is equal to 4 plus 4 plus 4, which is equal to 12. And the pupils stare on blankly and don't seem to comprehend it. Rather than make up another example on the fly, the teacher says, for instance, question 1 is 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6, which is equal to 24. So in the previous scenario, where the teacher gave an example of 3 times 4 being equal to 4 plus 4 plus 4 and equal to 12, which although is an actual fact, it was not, however, part of the test and therefore hypothetical within the scope that it is used. But when the teacher showed how to do question 1, it was a for instance, because the question was part of the test and not hypothetical. So there you have it. I hope you found this useful and informative. So next time you want to know if you should be using for example or for instance, hopefully now you'll be able to remember that the difference is an example is hypothetical, whereas an instance is actual fact. So thank you for watching, and please rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.